Here are the top stories for today, the 25th of May 2022. Malacanang says the Duterte administration has fulfilled its "Change is Coming" slogan. Attorney Trixie Cruz-Angeles is named as the new PCOO Secretary of the incoming administration of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos Jr. Russia is set to supply the country with a much-needed fertilizer. And beneficiaries of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program appeals for the continuation of the government's initiative. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Climate Change Commission has hailed the Duterte administration's achievements in addressing climate change. In his report to President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday, Climate Change Commission Secretary Robert Borges said the government demonstrated strong political will in its pro-environment initiatives. These include the closing of Boracay, the rehabilitation of Manila Bay, and imposing a moratorium on new coal-fired power plants. Under the present administration, climate policies were formulated such as the National Climate Risk Management Framework to increase resiliency and climate change adaptation and mitigation. The government also considers climate change adaptation in building shelters so that houses could withstand changing weather. The government also sought to incentivize energy conservation through RA 11285 or the Energy Efficiency Act. Meanwhile, Borges recommended to create relevant policies, evaluating the impact of climate change and disasters, push policies, increasing renewable energy share, and develop science and technology for adaptation and mitigation, among others. President Rodrigo Duterte's popular "Change is Coming" campaign slogan has been fulfilled during his 6-year term. Acting Presidential Spokesperson and Communications Secretary Martin Andanar said the President's accomplishments speak for itself. Andanar mentioned the ramped-up infrastructure spending under the Build program, the success of the anti-narcotics campaign, lower poverty incidence rate, and the 8.3% increase in the Philippine economy in the first quarter of the year, surpassing the pre-pandemic GDP level. Economic managers slashed the government's 2022 growth target from 7 to 9% to 7 to 8%. In a virtual briefing, Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua of the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, said they take into consideration external risks that have materialized in the last 6 months. These risks, he said, include the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the 75 basis points increase in the Federal Reserve's policy rates, and the slower growth of the Chinese economy, which is the second largest in the world. Chua said these factors are expected to be countered by the strong domestic economy. Despite the slash in the growth target for this year, economic managers retain the 6 to 7% growth target for 2023 to 2025. Attorney Rose Beatrix Trixie Cruz-Angeles is slated to become the next head of the Presidential Communications Operations Office under the administration of presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Incoming Executive Secretary Lawyer Vic Rodriguez made the announcement, saying Cruz-Angeles has already accepted her nomination as Press Secretary. In a statement, Cruz-Angeles says she is grateful for the opportunity to take part in the administration of President Bongbong Marcos as his press secretary. Cruz-Angeles served as Commissioner for Cultural Heritage at the National Commission for the Culture and the Arts, or NCCA, and the former spokesperson of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. She also served as a social media strategist at the PCOO from July under the current Duterte administration. Meanwhile, PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar welcomes the nomination of Cruz-Angeles as the incoming press secretary. He said Angeles is no stranger to PCOO, having served the office during the early years of the Duterte administration. He also wishes Attorney Angeles all the best in her latest assignment. Special elections in Tubaran, Lanao del Sur went smoothly. Meanwhile, defeated Mayor Evelio Leonardia is seeking for a recount due to alleged massive vote buying in Bacolod. The details from Stephanie Sevillano.
Special elections in 12 villages in Tubaran, Lanao del Sur went smoothly without any incident. Police Provincial Spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Ahid Manalumpong said voters peacefully cast their votes as early as 6 a.m. yesterday in 15 clustered precincts in the area. Manalumpong said more than 12,000 police and soldiers secured the voting in the villages. High-ranking police officials also inspected polling precincts. The Volunteer for National Movement for Free Elections, or NAMFREL, also said the election has been generally peaceful. The COMELEC earlier declared a failure of elections after thousands were prevented from voting in certain barangays. Meanwhile, Mayor Evelio Leonardia is seeking a manual recount of the votes in all 450 clustered precincts and asked the COMELEC to declare failure of elections due to the alleged massive vote buying and the presence of fake voters. Leonardia, who is vying for a third and last term, is seeking for special pulse after he was defeated by former Congressman Alfredo Benitez. Benitez is a businessman and former congressman of Negros Occidental's 3rd District. He represents the Ascenso Bacolod Party and garnered 171,893 votes. Meanwhile, Leonardia of Grupo Progreso got 107,447 votes in the mayoralty race. Leonardia spokesperson Chris Sorongan said the move of Mayor Leonardia to file a complaint was in response to the people's clamor for the truth. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Stephanie Sevillano.
The Commission on Elections urges the Electoral Board members to claim their honoraria to their respective election officers. The poll body only has 15 days to settle all obligations, including payment of honorarium. COMELEC Deputy Executive Director for Operations Teopisto Elnas said more than 600,000 teaching and non-teaching personnel served as poll workers last May 9. 10% of them have not yet claimed their fees. Under COMELEC Resolution number 10727, each electoral board chairpersons will receive 7,000 pesos. Members will get 6,000 pesos each. DepEd supervisor officials get 5,000 pesos each, and support staff with 3,000 pesos each. Elnas said the 2,000 peso additional pay approved by the COMELEC on bank is not included in the payment released to the teachers. Still ahead, Malacanang shrugs off an NGO's report that President Duterte is a major source of disinformation on the COVID-19 pandemic. The DILG administers close to 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines in its house-to-house vaccination drive. We'll be back after a quick break. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Commander Dito Ocampo po ng Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary para sa kumpanyang Disiplina Muna na pinangungunahan ng DILG. Bakit natin kailangan magpabakuna laban sa COVID-19? Dahil mahal mo ang iyong sarili, pamilya at bayan. Ang bakuna ang tiyak na paraan para tuluyang mapigilan ang pagkalat ng virus. May mga patunay na mababa ang porsyento ng pagkalat ng COVID-19 sa mga nabakunahan na. At matapos mabakunahan, malaki na ang tsansa na makabalik ka sa normal mong pamumuhay. Kaya tulad ko magparehistro na at magpabakuna na kontra COVID-19. Muli po, ako si Commander Dieter Ocampo, Disiplina Muna Ambassador. Nagpapaalala, huwag matakot magpabakuna dahil bida ang may disiplina. Magparehistro tayo at magpabakuna para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
Malacanang shrugged off a report pointing to President Rodrigo Duterte as a major source of disinformation during the pandemic. In a report published by non-government organization Innovation for Change, it said Duterte consistently shared inaccurate information on COVID-19 on top of confusing pronouncements on his plans to respond to the health crisis. Acting Presidential Spokesperson and Communications Secretary Martin Ananar said COVID-19 at the time was a new strain of coronavirus that had not been identified in humans before. As such, no one in the world knew about it. However, despite Duterte's pronouncements, he said the government's COVID-19 response has been a success. Andanar cited how the Philippines surpassed its 70% vaccination target and the reopening of more productive economic activities. The Freedom of Information, or FOI bill, has contributed to the promotion of an open and participatory government. This is according to the Commission on Human Rights, or CHR, as it welcomed the recommendation of the Presidential Communications Operations Office to retain the policy. Acting Deputy Presidential Spokesperson Undersecretary Chris Ablan in an interview said that the Presidential Communications Group have already prepared for their transition report for the incoming officials for endorsement. One initiative that they wish the next administration will continue is the Freedom of Information Program, which acts as a transparency mechanism of the executive branch. CHR Executive Director Lawyer Jacqueline Ann de Guia said the CHR joins the PCOO in the endorsement of this policy to the next administration. Meanwhile, Russia has vowed to supply traditional fertilizer urea to the Philippines. The Department of Agriculture, Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority said, amid the worsening limitation of fertilizer supply worldwide, Russia responded to their call and are willing to supply fertilizer to the country. Besides Russia, the Department of Agriculture said it is also expecting fertilizer supply from Indonesia, Malaysia, and China. For the upcoming cropping seasons, the department said it targets to import at least 600,000 metric tons of urea. The country's supply of fertilizer is at risk due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The country's import dependency is also affected by the strategic supply restrictions of several countries and the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The Interior Department has administered over 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to the unvaccinated or those with incomplete shots during their house-to-house vaccination campaign. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año on Monday reported that 811 cities and municipalities conducted the house-to-house vaccination. Earlier, Año directed all local government units to convince the unvaccinated and those eligible to get COVID-19 booster shots. Año issued the directive as the Omicron BA.4 subvariant has now entered the country. So far, Caraga tops the regions with the most number of vaccinated people. Año said LGUs must maximize its resources in convincing the unvaccinated and booster-eligible population to get vaccinated as a precautionary measure versus a more transmissible Omicron variant and possible community transmission. The Department of Health, or DOH, said the 3 contacts of the first Omicron BA.4 subvariant case are reported to be all asymptomatic and fully vaccinated. The first case is a returning overseas Filipino from Qatar who had a travel history to Brazil and South Africa. He was unvaccinated and asymptomatic when he entered the country. The DOH said the case has completed the 14-day isolation from May 4 to 18 before meeting the 3 household contacts. On the other hand, the testing status of each of the contacts is being verified. The European Center for Disease Prevention and Control considers BA.4 as a variant of concern because of its high transmissibility and ability to evade immune protection. More stories from the newsroom. A Filipino member of the U.S. Peace Corps gets the prestigious JFK Service Award. And PSC Chair Butch Ramirez says the Philippines has nothing to be ashamed of in finishing 4th in the Vietnam Southeast Asian Games. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Beneficiaries po para sa kampanyang Disiplina Muna na pinangungunahan ng DILG. Bakit ba kailangan magparehistro sa pagpapabakuna laban sa COVID-19? Mahalagang magparehistro dahil ito ang unang step sa pagpapabakuna laban sa COVID-19. May 3 pamamaraan upang makapagrehistro ang isang Pilipino na nais mabakunahan. Una, ang online registration sa inyong local government unit o LGU. Pangalawa, ang pagpunta sa mga vaccination centers at pagkuha ng registration form. At pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga pinuno ng barangay o sa mga barangay health center. Tandaan, online, sa mga vaccination site o sa mga barangay health centers ang pagpaparehistro sa pagpapabakuna kontra COVID-19. Muli ako po si Paolo Medjones, Disiplina Muna Ambassador na nagpapaalala, huwag matakot magpabakuna. Bida ang may disiplina. Magparehistro at magpabakuna para ligtas ang pamilya, ligtas ang bayan. Disiplinadong Pilipino ay rehistrado para maging bakunado.
Roberto Ambet Yanco, the Youth Program Manager of the United States Peace Corps Philippine, has become the first Filipino to get the prestigious John F. Kennedy Service Award. The award was bestowed on Yanco by U.S. Peace Corps CEO Carol Span last May 19 at the U.S. Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Embassy in Manila said Yanco received the award for his exceptional lifelong service and leadership in supporting the Filipino youth. As head of the U.S. Volunteer Organization's youth program in the Philippines, Yanco deployed over 300 American volunteers in orphanages, shelters, and youth centers across the country. Throughout his 22-year career with the Peace Corps, he has protected thousands of Filipino at-risk youth from homelessness, trafficking, violence, and drugs by helping provide them with education, job opportunities, and life skills development. The JFK Service Award is named after former United States President and U.S. Peace Corps founder John F. Kennedy Sr. Beneficiary families of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program, or BP2, are hoping more people would leave for the provinces and improve their lives. President Rodrigo Duterte signed Executive Order Number 114 on May 6, 2020 to institutionalize the BP2 program with the primary goal of decongesting Metro Manila. The program offers immediate assistance, hassle-free transactions for travel requirements, and emergency cash aid until beneficiaries safely return to their home provinces. As long-term assistance, They are given livelihood and employment opportunities, transitory support packages, and shelter assistance. The BP2 program has so far facilitated the return of 729 beneficiaries to home provinces from May 2020 to April this year. For his part, Senator Bongo, the brains behind the program, is hopeful the next administration will consider the benefits of the program, especially among those hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. BP2 beneficiaries are expected to reap benefits way beyond Duterte's term, same as his administration's landmark programs. In our news overseas, at least 21 people, including 18 children, were killed after a teenage gunman fired on an elementary school in South Texas on Tuesday. The suspect, identified as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, went to rob elementary school in the town of Uvalde, Texas, and opened fire. Governor Greg Abbott said the suspect was apparently killed by responding police officers. The motive for the shooting was not immediately known, although authorities claim Ramos shot and killed his grandmother before going to the school. The shooting unfolded just 10 days after 10 people were shot and killed by an 18-year-old man with an assault rifle in Buffalo, New York, in predominantly black neighborhood. U.S. President Joe Biden ordered flags down at half-mast daily until May 28 in observance of this tragedy. In sports, Philippine Sports Commission Chair Butch Ramirez congratulated the Philippine delegation for their performance in the 31st Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam. Ramirez said the Philippines has nothing to be ashamed of in finishing 4th place overall. He said the country's performance was a good finish despite the various challenges faced by the national athletes amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The Philippine delegation brought home 52 gold, 70 silver, and 104 bronze medals in placing 4th overall in the medal standings. Ramirez said athletes could be trained to be truly world-class as long as they start young. He cited as examples weightlifter Heidelin Diaz and gymnast Carlos Edreal Yulo, who both started training in long-term programs before becoming medalists. The PSC honcho also reminded everyone that the sports agency was not only to support the national athletes but also to implement a genuine grassroots sports program. Magsaysay in Lanao del Norte celebrated its 57th founding anniversary by promoting tourism as the town reopens amid the COVID-19 pandemic. More on this from Lu Antonio.
Residents of Magsaysay Town in Lanao del Norte celebrated the 25th araw na Magsaysay's Niyogan Festival and 57th founding anniversary through a parade. This year's celebration has been simple but important for residents and the local government. Face-to-face celebrations have been stopped for 2 years due to strict COVID-19 restrictions.
So actually sa pagkakaroon ang atong gihimo nga kasaulugan sa araw ng Magsaysay, wala kayo may saktong preparasyon tungod sa bag-o lang milabay ang eleksyon niining 2022. So karon atong gisaulog ang araw simple nga celebration, no?
Teachers in the Department of Education featured a dance performance showcasing the culture and good relationship between Christians and Muslims. Meanwhile, other tourist attractions in the town were also highlighted, such as the Hardin de Racma Ecotourism Park, which is known for its colorful garden and relaxing environment. The giant golden kettle and large icons like Hulk and King Kong can also be found there.
Actually, na natin gisugdan nga himuon diri nga hanging bridge with hanging bicycle, no? Dayon natahimuon nga mga swimming pool, no? So kamulo na muna nga plano paningkamot nga niining tuiga makapangita kita og additional nga mga pundo para madungag na to nga attraction din sa ato ang ecotourism park.
The provincial government of Lanao del Norte recently inaugurated the restroom facility, multi-purpose building, and entrance to the ecotourism park. Meanwhile, along with the celebration, a kanduri or Thanksgiving was also conducted to convey gratitude for the successful 2022 elections. For the PNA Newsroom, Du Antonio of PAA Iligan City and Lanao del Norte.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Malacanang says the Duterte administration has fulfilled its "Change is Coming" slogan. Attorney Trixie Cruz-Angeles is named as the new PCOO Secretary of the incoming administration of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos Jr. Russia is set to supply the country with a much-needed fertilizer. And beneficiaries of the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program appeals for the continuation of the government's initiative. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.